Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Would you like to make price irrelevant in your business? Find out how on this episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. If you're ready to start your own customer service revolution journey, you won't want to miss this week's episode as Chief Revolution Officer John DiJulius and Senior Customer Experience Consultant for the DiJulius Group, Dave Murray, discuss the building blocks every great customer service organization has to have. Join us this week and learn the actual definition of a customer service revolution, which is more important to building world-class customer service organizations, hiring or training. The most important ingredient that separates world-class customer service organizations from every other business. The 3 things that determine anyone's service aptitude. How you might have negative cues hiding in your business. And now, here's your host, John DiJulius.
Welcome to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution, episode 40. And I am John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer, and I am joined by Mr. Dave Murray, a.k.a. Murray, the Senior Customer Experience Consultant for the DiJulius Group. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, John. Thanks for having me back on today. It's great to be here. I can't believe it's episode 40. Wow.
That's a big number, and we're growing. We're getting a lot of followers, a lot of great feedback. We're making some dent, and that's why I'm excited about today's episode. Hindsight, it should have been probably episode number 1, but today's episode is starting your customer service revolution. So we want to get in and really explain to you, exactly what a customer service revolution is, and how you can just get it going in your company. Some key components that we have found the best companies in the world do at customer service. So are you ready, Dave?
I am ready. And this is such a great topic, John, because I know that a lot of people out there can feel so overwhelmed, right? There's so many places where they could be focused on trying to improve service. And it's really all about baby steps. And that's what we're going to focus on today.
All right, well, let's get after it. So, the DiJulius Group, our purpose is changing the world by creating a customer service revolution. And that's not something that's just a bumper sticker or, something we just say. We really, really mean. And so we define it. A customer service revolution is a radical, and I love that word, a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality, designed to transform what employees and customers experience. Again, I'm not even through the definition. I can't stop it, but it's so key there. Employees and customers, right? A radical overthrow, conventional business mentality designed to transform what employees and customers experience. This shift produces a culture that permeates into people's personal lives, at home and in the community, which in turn provides the business with higher sales, morale, and brand loyalty, thus making price irrelevant. Any comments on that, Dave?
Yeah, one of the things I always like to point out when we're talking about the definition of a customer service revolution is the fact that employees is in there first, right? It's important that our employees are represented. So the term employees is right in the definition. But you take it a step further, employees are first, right? They're listed before customers. And I say that's very purposeful, right? We have to make sure that our internal culture, what we're doing for our internal customers is correct, because we can't expect them to go out and deliver the world-class service we want them to deliver if they're not experiencing it first. So I think that's such an important part of the definition.
And One of my favorite parts is the next line. The shift produces a culture that permeates into people's personal lives at home and in the community. That's the ripple effect. And, if we're treating our team members better, they're going to treat their customers and coworkers better. And, now people are going home and it's not just something that they do at work. And some of the best compliments I've ever gotten is, where I meet a parent of a young employee we've had working for us for a year or two. And they make a joke saying, I don't know what you did to my daughter, but she's not the same person she was a year ago. And that's like the highest praise you can get, that, they're seeing a different person at home.
Yeah. I love that part of my job. There's a lot of things about my job that I love, but that's one that really stands out to me when I'm working with the client and I might be going back on site and seeing them, and someone comes up to me that was in one of our workshops like this, the workshops we'll be talking about today, and comes up and says, I'm using these tools at home as well, and it's making an impact. And that's always great to hear.
Yeah. And so the last line is, which in turn provides the business with higher sales, morale, and brand loyalty, thus making price irrelevant. So as you know, Dave, that's kind of been a controversial statement, making price irrelevant, that's impossible. And what we always say is listen, making price irrelevant, what we mean by it doesn't mean that you could double your prices or even raise them 20%, at any time, especially at a time like now, and not lose existing or potential customers. But our definition of making price irrelevant is based on the experience your brand consistently delivers. What we mean by that is that's not just if I get Dave, right? It's any touch point, whoever I get today, tomorrow, next week at a different location. Based on the experience your brand consistently delivers, your customers have no idea what you charge. And, I think that's it. We're all price sensitive. And I've been the goofball that's driven 3 extra miles to save, 50 cents on a product, not realizing I just lost in that exchange. But, each of us, probably almost every person in the world, has 1, 2, or 3 companies, people they do business with, that they're so loyal to because of the relationship, peace of mind that they've given them, that they're not out price checking them to see if they can get a better deal somewhere else.
Yeah. And where else we get pushback on the making price irrelevant definition, John, are those organizations out there, and there's quite a few, where their team members are competing on price right now. They're getting price shopped by their customer base in whatever their industry happens to be on a regular basis. And they can have a really hard time seeing the light at the end of this making price irrelevant tunnel, because they're in it every day. But it is possible. We work with companies all the time that make this a focus and focus on the relationship, the experience, and get out of competing solely on price.
Yeah, 100%. And, my first business that we started 30 years ago, the DiJulius Group sister company, John Roberts Spa. We talk about that we're in Cleveland, Midwest town. Our prices aren't the same as they are for anything on the West Coast, East Coast. Our average haircuts in Cleveland are, probably $75 for a woman. Well, I'm sorry. In Cleveland, it's about $33 for a woman in Cleveland for a haircut. At our John Roberts Spa locations, our average is $75. We have people that start off at $50, charging for a woman's haircut, and then we have several hairdressers that charge well over $100, up to $130, and they're booked. And that's key. So we choose not to compete in price wars. We compete in experience wars. There's a lot less people competing in experience wars, and a lot of times they don't know how to do it as well. So that's where we choose to compete is in experience wars, and it's paying off. Like I said, we're the busiest salon in Northeast Ohio, and sometimes we could be 4 times as expensive as the average.
Yeah. And so that's such a great example of the point we're trying to make here of making price irrelevant. It is possible. And the reality is, organizations, you don't want to compete in those price wars, right? Because the problem with competing in the price wars is people take gambles, and organizations, unfortunately, are in those price wars, and they sometimes go out of business because they're too involved in those price wars. And so that's why we want to make sure that our teams understand that we are competing in the experience wars over the price wars, because we want to compete based on the experience we are delivering. And there's so many positives that come from that, not only making price irrelevant, but customer retention, employee satisfaction, so many things when we get out of those price wars. So it's such a great focus and such a great place to start. And if you're wondering if you even need to be thinking about this, ask yourself this. Ask yourself, if one of your best customers right now went home today and in their mailbox was a coupon from one of your competitors with a 10%, 20%, 30% off of a product that you're currently selling them, would you lose that customer? For a lot of businesses, the answer probably is yes. And so if that's the case for you, if you are one coupon away from losing some of your best customers, then there is an opportunity to focus on getting yourselves into the experience wars and out of the price wars.
Yeah, great point, Dave. You got nothing. Like you said, if you're an incentive away, someone smooth talking, they find it on Amazon or on the internet, you really got no customer equity. I also believe in price match guarantee, which I know should sound like I'm being hypocritical or contradicting myself. But if you're talking about making price irrelevant, but now I'm talking about making, price, you should believe in price match guarantee. What I mean by that is a total paradigm shift in the way you and your employees have to think. I want everyone in your organization, in my organization, to think that we are the leading experts and the experienced providers at what we do, and no one is better. We will not be oversold. In fact, if you can find it higher somewhere else, we will raise our prices and match it. Right. And I know that's, funny, but it's not as simple, like the way I think is, how dare anyone charge more for something than us, right? Be it the hair salon in Northeast Ohio or the DiJulius Group services, because if someone can charge more than us and are getting it, that means we're not doing something. And it's not so simple that, they're charging $5 more, 5% more, we need to raise our 6%, and therefore, no, it's not that simple. You have to look at how they're doing it. How are they justifying it? You have to study them and see, what they're bringing. Are they smarter? Are they more technically savvy? Are they providing a better experience? And then we have to raise our game. Right. And I just think that's the mentality we should have. Instead of apologizing that our prices are a little bit, higher, we should be proud. How dare there is anyone out there that can charge more than we are, because we are so good at what we do.
It makes me think of a saying that you say quite often, John, that I love, when you talk about discounting is the tax that you pay for being average. Right. So think about that. If your experience is average, then you are going to have to discount, right? It's just the cost of doing business for delivering an average, forgettable experience. And it's so important. So if you're thinking to yourself about your business, and is this something where we need to focus on, think about, I have an exercise that I want to share, and John and I want to share some exercises today that you can take back to your teams and get the conversation started with your team members and have those important conversations amongst your staff. So here's the exercise. Next time you have a staff meeting, whether it be leadership or your frontline folks, whoever's involved, ask yourself this: how do you want your team members to respond to the question or the statement that a customer makes when they say, I can get this for less somewhere else? What do you want your team members to be doing? And also ask, what are they doing right now? Because chances are they might immediately start backpedaling and trying to throw things in or talk about trying to get a discount, as opposed to speaking to the value that you will receive by purchasing from us and being able to talk about all the things that they're going to receive, the value adds, the service level, whatever that is, that they might not get somewhere else. So that's a great start to at least get your teams thinking about if they're competing in the price wars or the experience wars.
Dave, I love that. And I honestly believe that is one of the most valuable exercises and time you can spend, because all our employees are getting it, right? How much do you charge for? Oh, holy cow, I could get it, here. And then, like you said, they start backpedaling, they start apologizing, they start shrinking and say, well, we'll throw in, this and this. And you have to be so articulate, and you have to help train your employees to be so articulate that after they're done explaining why, what comes with it, that the person on the other end of the phone, email, counter, he walks away thinking, I can't afford to go cheaper. Right. And example I was talking to someone yesterday about is they asked me, give me a specific example, because we were talking about this. I said, all right, let's say, someone calls the DiJulius Group and gets Claudia, who handles, the coming leads, and they're looking for a keynote speaker. And she starts sharing, for their annual conference, one of us. And, they say, well, that's great. Well, how much does, he or she charge? And she quotes them, and they're like, whoa, we're looking at other speakers that are $5,000 less, right? Now, that's the question. Where do you go with that? Well, Claudia is so good, and she'll start saying, well, let me ask you, what's the objective of your conference? Well, we have it once a year. We bring all the general managers in, all the franchisees in, and really want them to get on the same page and go back, be energized and focused, and and do the same for their employees back at home. And then you ask the next question, well, so when do you get them back again? Oh, not till next year, 12 months. Oh, so, you only get one shot at them. Yeah. And man, it better be good, because, 12 months is kind of, wasted if it's not. And then I bet, if it's not great, next year, you're going to have a hard time convincing them to come, back to your conference, because the year, and exactly, we had that happen 3 years ago. And so Claudia is really good at that, because you're starting to put doubt in their mind that can they afford to, go to the $5,000 less speaker, because you look at that cost that they're going to have if that keynote isn't at the highest level, and they don't, inspire everyone to go back and do something different like you're hoping. So, I love that. I think that's a great exercise.
Yeah. And it's really all about turning your team members into advocates for your customers, making sure that they are trying to advocate for your customers, get them the best thing that they need, whether it's us or someone else or whatever that may wind up being, but making sure that they are focused on the best interest of your customers to deliver that to them.
Looking for more innovative customer experience ideas? Join us October 5th and 6th for the Customer Service Revolution Conference. In-person and virtual tickets on sale now. Visit customerservicerevolution.com for more information.
Well, Dave, let's go on. I love asking, and I know you do too. We ask audiences and leaders of companies, if you're going to build a world-class customer service company, what is more important? A, the hiring of new employees, or B, the training and culture you bring them in on. And I always preface before you commit to A or B, but the answer is both, right? It's no different than, if I say, Dave, if you want to be in the best physical shape of your life, what's more important, the workout or eating? And you can't accomplish that goal without doing both extremely well. But for this case, I say, I ask the audience to commit to one of them, just one extra percent, 51%. Again, knowing that both are critical, and we've got to be good at both. And typically the majority will go with B, training and culture. And I agree with that. And if you're someone who immediately went to A, hiring, that doesn't mean you're wrong. We have chapters and books and workshops and podcasts and webinars, all on the critical component of hiring. And to me, there's very few things more important than hiring. And I like to think of hiring as that 30-foot high fence with barbed wire and how protective you have to be. But do we really think the Disneys of the world found 50,000 employees, human beings born to serve? Right? I don't think there's 500 human beings walking the earth born to serve. But here's what I love that Walt himself said. He said, we don't put our new employees in Disney. We put Disney in our new employees. And I love that. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. That's what the revolution is. It's about putting your brand and the standards and the reputation into your people. So they feel like, whoa, I'm not in Kansas anymore. This isn't like my last job where I was allowed to, get away with mediocrity.
Yeah, and it makes me think of the great quote also, John, from the Ritz-Carlton, which obviously everyone knows is an industry leader in hospitality. And they have said that our ladies and gentlemen come from the exact same labor force and backgrounds as our competitors' labor pool. And we're not paying any more for them either. They're not paying higher wages. They pay the industry average. But it's really what they do once they join our family. I love the fact that they call it their family. And they go on to say how they create guidelines on how people are to perform. And so they're making sure that they have those things in place so people understand that this is different and they're not leaving it to chance. They're not just hiring good people and hoping for the best, that they have standards for them to execute and live up to.
Yeah. And I think all this is saying the same thing, which is a paradigm shift is, most people don't realize they can dramatically increase their company's level of customer service they deliver with their existing employees. Like, yes, you hire well, but it doesn't mean you got to get rid of everyone and start over. And I think that's what the next point is. And it's probably the foundation of everything that DiJulius Group teaches. And what really separates world-class customer service companies from everyone else comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's the service aptitude. From the CEO to the guy working in the shop to the newest employee that's going to start working next week. That's not the paradigm shift. It's where it comes from. But before we get into that, service aptitude is a person's ability to recognize opportunities to meet and exceed customers' expectations regardless of the circumstances, okay? Let me say it one more time. A person's ability to recognize opportunities to meet and exceed a customer's expectations regardless of the circumstances. That's what service aptitude is. That's what the great companies really work and to teach from the day, even in the interview process and during, orientation and all the way through someone's career is improving their service aptitude. And all our podcasts, including today, are going to talk about how you do that.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember this. And I love the fact that in the definition, it talks about meeting expectations and then exceeding expectations, right? A lot of times when companies get excited about having a customer experience initiative, they start thinking about the above and beyonds and going viral when their employees do something great for a customer. And those things are all wonderful and they will happen. But a lot of organizations go wrong by not making sure that they are meeting those expectations first. So that's a great place to start. Ask yourselves, are your team members meeting customer expectations on a regular basis? Do they have the tools, the infrastructure, whatever it is that they need to have to meet those expectations? And, another thing that's so important about service aptitude, John, is the reality out there for us as consumers is that most times, most organizations are putting their most recently hired, least trained, lowest paid employees in front of customers, right? That's where in a lot of organizations, when you're new, that's where you start. And that's not a bad thing if there is some training behind it. But most organizations don't have that service aptitude. They don't have that soft skill training in place. And again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. They kind of hire good people and hope for the best and don't actually have any training in place. And that's why service aptitude is so important, as you called it a few minutes ago, the foundation of everything we do. And here's what's important about service aptitude that a lot of people don't necessarily know or think of, is that we as human beings get service aptitude from three places, right? So everyone has a service aptitude. Some are high, some are low. And here's what happens with it. The first place we get service aptitude are previous life experiences. So literally how we grew up, the service we experienced as children, adolescents, going through school, whatever that was, that starts to shape your level of service aptitude. So that's a big piece of it.
Dave, I'm sorry, you bring up a good point though, because I don't know about you, but you wouldn't have wanted my world-class experience I was capable of delivering at 19, 21, or 25, because I'd never, stayed at a nice hotel. I never flew first class. I never wasn't driving Mercedes-Benz and had that type of dealer experience. I wasn't getting $110 haircuts. So my life experience didn't afford me the know-how of what world-class looked like. So, I think that's a huge aha for people. And all our employees, many of our customer-facing employees don't know what world-class looks like yet, but we're expecting them to go deliver it.
Yeah, that old saying that we use from time to time, that a lot of times organizations want their team members to deliver a Cadillac or a Mercedes-Benz experience, yet they're hiring people that have never had the opportunity to afford one. And so they don't know what that experience is like, yet they have to go and deliver it. So we have to remember that as to why service aptitude is so important. Because first of all, the people we're hiring may not have been our customers, right? So they don't understand what that level of service looks like. So that's the first place we get our service aptitude. The second place we get our service aptitude, and I like to argue is probably the scariest place, is previous work experiences. And why it's scary is because, as we all know, as consumers out there, or even in your own business right now, a lot of organizations don't have any service aptitude. They don't have soft skill training in place. And so employees, team members are really left to their own devices to figure out what that experience looks like, or they learn it from their coworkers on the job as they're seeing how customers are being treated. And a lot of times that's not necessarily a good thing, right? When people are kind of left unchecked to go and create an experience. So we always say that unless you are hiring from organizations that we know have great service aptitude in place, like the Ritz-Carlton that we already mentioned, like Disney, like Chick-fil-A, unless you're hiring from those places on a regular basis, you can assume that your team members, your new hires, have low service aptitude. Just assume it. But the good news is, and I'm going to throw it back to you, John, the good news is that's okay, because the third place we get our service aptitude is the most important.
Well, as you point out, the first two, previous life experiences, previous work experience, as leaders of companies, we can't control those, right? We don't only hire people with silver spoon growing up and, with that type. And we don't have access to a direct pipeline. So we can't control that. But the third place is current work experience. And, that is huge. What do you do with a new employee when you hire them? And I love asking this question, because I'll say, all right, if you're to hire one of my sons tomorrow to work in a customer facing position, how much training will you give him before he starts interacting with your customer? And some people say 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. And that's really not the answer I'm looking for. Here's the answer I'm looking for is, of the 40, 400, or 4,000 hours you're going to put him through training, how much of that is technical, operational processes, and how much is soft skill, building a rapport, showing empathy and compassion, making a brilliant comeback when, you or he or the company drops the ball. And that's the startling thing. Most people will say, 95, 98% is operational. And truth be told, that, less than 5% that's not operational training is kind of, just a platitude. Hey, Dave Jr., we exceed client expectations here. We go above and beyond. Go do that. And that's the extent of their soft skill training. And the problem with that is, you tell 100 people to deliver genuine hospitality, that'll be processed 100 different ways. And that's the key, is we have to remove personal interpretations and show them what world-class looks like. And that's what all our methodology and commandments are built on, is removing the personal interpretation. So kind of the best way to wrap this part up is it's not your employee's responsibility. It's none of your employees' responsibility to have high service aptitude. It's the leadership, the organization, to give it to them. It's with that training. It's with the orientation. It's with the selection process. It's ongoing. It's all the stuff that we're going to be talking about in the upcoming podcast about service aptitude. Creating the customer service action statement and the nevers and always and all those things. That's what helps increase everyone's service aptitude.
So, John, one of the first things that we do when we start working with an organization and we're helping them build service aptitude, because as we just talked about, organizations need to create that service aptitude, then train their team members on it. One of the places we like to start is what we call negative cues. And so we wanted to talk about it briefly on the podcast today because it serves as a great starting point for anyone. So it may be something that you want to go back and look at within your organization later today or tomorrow, the next time you're in the office, because here's the thing about negative cues. They exist everywhere, whether we're aware of it or not. You have negative cues right now in your organization, and they are completely unintentional. So it's not that we have poor employees that are out there delivering them. They're just a lot of times bad habits or things that we have let slide that have become these negative cues. So I'll give you some examples of what they can look like, and you can go back in your organization and again start to search for them and get some of your team members involved to join that search. So sometimes negative cues can hide in simple things like the words that we use or nonverbal communication as well. But let me give you an example of how words can be part of that. So let's say you call up your insurance company or some organization, and the response you hear from them is, you need to verify your information. Sounds a little bit accusatory, right? Like, are you say who you say you are? If we change one word in that, if we change verify to confirm, you need to confirm your information, it changes the tone ever so slightly. Now, if we change one other word in that statement, if we change you to we and say, we just need to confirm your information, and then we're off and running with your answer to your question or getting to the right spot, whatever that is. I've taken a statement that sounded a little accusatory at the start, and now it's really more of one advocating for you, that we need to do this together, and then we can get you where you need to be. So again, sometimes something as simple as our word choices can be delivering negative cues. Now, we're not sitting here saying that you need to go out and script all of your call interactions or the voice interactions your team members are having. That's not the case at all. We want their personalities to shine through. We want them to be them. But we do need to build awareness about what some of these negative cues might be. So they can exist in the words we use. They can exist in nonverbal cues as well, in a face-to-face environment or on Zoom. They can exist, and they can also exist in written word, like signage is a great example. Do you have any signs around your organization that are maybe handwritten or kind of hastily made and hanging on a wall? They happen all the time, and they usually come from a good place, but they might not be delivering the message that we want to have delivered to our customers. Again, it may be delivering a negative cue. And another great place to look for negative cues would be in any correspondence you're having with customers. All too often, correspondence is written to one type of customer, yet sent to many different types of customers. I'll give you an example. We were working with an organization that had a pretty strongly written letter for someone that was past due on an invoice. And that same letter was going to someone that might have been violating this timeline for the 15th, 16th time in a calendar year versus someone who just accidentally did it for the first time. The same letter was going, right? So sometimes things are worded very strongly, but they're not right for all of our customers. So something as simple as the tone of your correspondence could be an important place to start. So as a reminder, negative cues can really exist anywhere. They could be on our website, the words that we're using, terminology. Are we sometimes speaking in our own terminology that a customer might not understand? They don't understand our lingo, our acronyms, et cetera. Do we have signage, and even the actions of our employees? So again, a great place to start your focus on your own service aptitude is to start and look at some of those things that might be existing in our culture that we can work together to lessen or nullify.
Dave, I love this because, everything speaks. Disney teaches us that, from, a negative cue could be something that needs a paint job, it's peeling, or all the, like you're saying, you go to a doctor's office and all these signage, no cell phones, $30 fee if you bounce a check. And it's like too often it is intended to protect yourself from getting taken advantage. But at the end of the day, it's usually less than 2%. And you don't want to punish 98% of your customers for what you're afraid 2% might do. And it just looks bad. I mean, it just says, do I want to do business every place I go, and threats and punishments. And people do say, well, listen, you don't understand. There might be a HIPAA violation or a legal violation. And yes, I understand. And as you know, when we go through and do a negative cue audit on a website, a signage, terminology, emails, all the different places, employees, how they're behaving when they're in sight of customers, forgetting that they're still on stage. What I have found is that 40% of the signage, the wording, whatever you want to call it, needs to be articulated, okay? But it can be articulated in a positive frame. So I'll give you an example of a client, that we've worked with for over a decade, Travel Centers of America, and they're a truck repair place. And, when the drivers would bring their trucks in to get repaired, they'd have to sit in the lobby, and have coffee and wait. And then on the door was a sign, that into the bay that says no truck drivers allowed past this point. That kind of bothered drivers because they're like, why can't you, what are you doing to my truck? It made them suspicious. Well, when I asked them about that, they said, well, you'll understand, our insurance company won't protect or cover if a driver slips and falls in the bay. Therefore, we can't have them. Okay. So, they reworded it and saying, for your protection, for your safety and protection, should you need anything from your cab, your truck, please ask us and we will escort you or get it for you. So when, it needed to be still said, but said in a different way for your protection, right? So I think that those are great points that everything speaks. Well, Dave, we covered a lot today. I love this, starting, your own customer service revolution. Like you said, it is a gigantic, it could really seem like it's just so big and overwhelming, but it's really not. You take baby steps and talked about the actual definition of a customer service revolution. And that's a force, and people get behind it. Your team really gets behind, creating something different for each other and for their customers. And we talked about, the importance of service aptitude and negative cues. So I think we've given our listeners, our revolutionaries, a good, foundation to start looking at things and get started. And then, the ensuing podcast, we're going to be covering where we're just going to be, eating that elephant one bite at a time and how you increase their service aptitude.
Yeah. What we talked about today, John, is such a great start. Little things, like we said earlier, baby steps, little things that you can focus on to start turning that tide and make sure that your organization is part of the customer service revolution and really focused on the experience and working towards making price irrelevant.
All right, revolutionaries, thank you for joining us for another incredible information with my co-host, Dave Murray, the Merster. We will be back next week to bring you more exciting customer and employee experience content. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, John. Great to be here.
All right. We will see you all next week.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and are ready to think about starting your own customer service revolution. To get inspired by more episodes, subscribe now on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening and for being part of the customer service revolution.